This is Travis Wayne Goodsell. This one video, I prefer doing video mediums to communicate rather than writing or audio. However, my website can't handle uploads of videos that are technically more than 15 to 20 minutes, and even then it takes a while for them to upload. And so YouTube is the best format for uploading videos. The only problem is that YouTube is throttling my YouTube site, so I can't get the views that I would get on my website. Nevertheless, we'll figure something out. Big announcement, however, as we get into this, I'm planning on starting up a reboot of my Paleo Hebrew 101 lessons. I'll be publishing those through Amazon, and I'll maybe do videos of it as well, so that there will be videos, audio. Well, I can't do audio for Paleo Hebrew. You got to see the script. So we'll see. Maybe at the beginning of next year. I don't know. So yeah, I'm only going to do that because the enemy that controls us is prolonging our torture as they dominate our society and our nation, slowly choking us to death, just like the frog in the hot water metaphor. Alright, so this one is about Mormons, because those are my more popular videos on YouTube. And so Mormons, especially the guy that's going to give me a thumbs down for this video, because he obviously is a hater. He doesn't like mankind. He, loves Lucifer and worships the beast. So yes, if you've actually paid attention this far without giving me a thumbs down yet, I'm speaking to you. So the question I have for Mormons is, why haven't you left the church yet? What is holding on? What is making you hold on? There's no reason to. There are numerous issues, and we're going to go over each and every single one of them in brevity, so that it doesn't end up being an hour long, even though it probably will, because there's numerous issues that need to be gone over. And so many millions have already left the church. And so the ex-Mormons, this is like, oh yeah, I left for that issue, or I left for that and that issue. So they already know. But the question is to Mormons, why haven't you left? And so I'm going to list off the issues, and then we'll go over them one by one. Polygamy, racism, segregation, sexism, child abuse, illegitimate succession, murder, neglecting the poor, lies and deception, altering doctrine, fraud and crime, Church of Lucifer, hate, false blame. In other words, Mormons are getting blamed rather than the leaders. Leaders not getting revelation. Spying through the Deseret News. That's their privacy policy that they just changed this year. They now can spy on your hard drive, not just your browsing history. And the church is in charge of the Deseret News. Keeping secrets. Following bad examples of Book of Mormon characters, like the Antichrist rather than the prophets. And I'm sure that there are many more, and so we could put other, but we can't have a one-on-one conversation about what would be the final straw for you Mormons. You can't just ignore the issues. You have to confront them. You can't live your life in fear using the church as a blanket or a pacifier. Just because it has the name of Jesus in the middle of the name, just because the scriptures have the name Jesus, it is not a justification for clinging to the church. The church and Jesus are not one and the same. I don't know if you understand that, but that's what you're doing. You're joining the two together as if they are one and the same. And because of that belief that you have, these issues that would normally tell you, I want nothing to do with this. Because, for example, if your neighbors were polygamous, you'd be up in arms, calling the cops on them, ignoring them, etc., etc. You know that's what you do. But when Brigham Young declares the church is now practicing polygamy, and you believe that the prophet of the church is the voice for God, all of a sudden your attitude towards him changes. And you make justifications, you make excuses, apologies. You are allowing wickedness to exist in the church instead of standing up and saying, no, this is not allowed. So yeah, I could probably throw in threats, because the church does threaten Mormons. So we're going to add threats as another issue. Okay, so this is what we're going to go over one by one. And I want Mormons to understand you need to leave the church. This is not an antichrist speaking. This is a person who is a devout follower of God speaking to you. I am like Samuel the Lamanite speaking on the wall of the Nephite capital, warning the people. I am like Abinadi, warning the people. And yes, I've been arrested and incarcerated for 6 years, not for the short period of time that Abinadi did, although he was burned for not confessing that evil is right. So, you know, what's it going to take, Mormons? So let's proceed, shall we? Okay, polygamy. I've added a few more during this time, so we'll get to them, and you'll see what they are, even though they'll be last. Polygamy. The church, with the gospel topic essays, came out and threw Joseph Smith under the bus, confessing, as they believe, or leading people to believe, that Joseph Smith was responsible for starting polygamy. And of course that was a trigger for many Mormons, saying, oh, wait a minute, you guys were involved with that? 14-year-old girls, married women? No, I'm out of here. However, the church has been lying to you. And historians have also been taking the word of the fraudulent documentation cover-up that was involved in the early church. There are no documents from the time that Joseph Smith was alive indicating that he was practicing it. And that's important to recognize, historians, because the facts are that Brigham Young got up in conference when he was in Utah as the head of the church and said, we are now going to practice polygamy. There was a movement that supported this action, because you just can't just bring something up like this upon the members of the church without some kind of a justification for it. And so, since he's trying to claim that he's legitimate as successor to Joseph, you therefore have to go to Joseph to justify it. The problem is that it exploited Mormon stupidity. And here's why. Joseph Smith Sr. lived in Vermont. Remember, that's where Joseph was born, Joseph Jr. Well, he was a part of the New Israelites. And the New Israelites believed in spiritual wifery, as they called it. Plural marriage, polygamy, polyandry. Well, not polyandry, sorry. That's one woman, many husbands. Polygyny, one man, many women. And there's no documentation that indicates that Joseph Smith Sr. Was practicing the plural wifery or spiritual wifery of the New Israelites. However, there is documentation indicating that he was considered a master rodsman, well skilled in divination using the rods, you know, like finding water over your toilet. You can take coat hangers, metal coat hangers, and you can do this, and oh wow, that's cool, you know, a little kid's trick. And you can do that anywhere to find water, but this was specifically for treasure finding, and so it's not quite legitimate, but nevertheless, he was considered a master at it. So that's where the treasure-seeking part of Joseph Smith Jr. comes in, and why people considered him a treasure seeker, because Joseph Smith was just following the example of his father, but Joseph Smith used 2 rocks in a hat rather than a rod. So Joseph Smith was doing a different type of tactic. Whereas Oliver Cowdery from the Doctrine and Covenants followed his father's example, having also been in the New Israelites in Vermont, the Cowderys and the Macks being cousins. And so there's no indication that the Cowderys also practiced polygyny. And then you have the Book of Mormon that comes out. And the Book of Mormon has at least a couple instances of denouncing polygyny. Jacob, for example, talking to the new colony of Nephites in the New World, says, hey, don't be practicing polygyny. That's bad. And David and Solomon were doing bad when they did it. Camera adjustments in the middle of the video. And then you have King Noah, and he was bad. Why was he bad? Well, they list reasons why he was bad, and one of those was many wives and concubines. So, yeah, the Book of Mormon is anti-polygamy. That was the major focus of the church in the beginning. Book of Mormon, Book of Mormon, Book of Mormon. We're pushing it. Anti-polygamy. Okay, so there's 2 evidences against Joseph Smith practicing polygamy. So then you get to 1835, and Joseph Smith turns the Book of Commandments into the Doctrine and Covenants, and then adds in a revelation, as he calls it, on marriage. 1 man, 1 woman. What, 132, that's not the one? No. 132 came out right before Brigham Young died, and went contrary to the Book of Mormon about David and Solomon. In section 132, as you know, it says David and Solomon had wives, extra wives, because they were approved by God, but there are some things that were not approved by God. But those that I gave them were approved. And so section 132 is going contrary to the previous statements during Joseph's lifetime. Thus you can tell, hey, wait a minute, this is a fraudulent document if it's claiming to be by Joseph. And so this is how you do research and figure things out, identifying the truth. So Joseph Smith was not endorsing polygamy in his lifetime. So then what about the 14-year-old housekeeper? You know, David Whitmer said that he had sex with her. Well, what was David Whitmer's position? He was ousted out of the church because of the Danites. And he believed that the Danites were organized by Joseph Smith. And instead, the Danites were a secret organization within the church, trying to kick out the leadership, as I've discussed in other situations, and I'll probably go over it during the illegitimate succession part. So David Whitmer is just throwing out accusations, hoping to destroy the credibility of Joseph Smith in the church that he was ostracized from. So you have to understand the position he's in and why he would make such a statement. The 14-year-old girl never got pregnant, so if Joseph had sex with her, they didn't have condoms, they didn't have birth control. She would have gotten pregnant. She didn't. So that's a clear indication that David Whitmer was just speaking out of anger rather than speaking from actual witness. Because how are you going to witness? You know, if he had actually witnessed it, that would have been another matter altogether. But he doesn't indicate that he witnessed it. He just throws out the accusation. And so that, yeah, that Jesus and the adult woman taken in adultery, people say we witnessed her in the act of adultery, but when Jesus said, okay, if you guys are without sin, go ahead and stone her, because that's the law, everybody then backed off. And it's not because Jesus was allowing sinful behavior. It was simply a matter of she was falsely accused in order to trap Jesus. So that's what's going on with Joseph. All of the reports from the women who claim to have had babies with Joseph, they lied. DNA now indicates they lied. And so, yeah, all of the claims, all of the reports, the secret sealing session that was had, where Joseph was married to, you know, several dozen women, that was all after he died. That's when it took place. The records were altered or manipulated to implicate Joseph as the one supporting polygamy. But the fact is, Brigham Young started it. And so everything else that blames Joseph therefore has to be taken under the facts that Joseph was set up, and that lies were perpetuated to blame Joseph in order to allow Brigham Young to get away with the new practice of polygamy for the church. So, yes, critics are right about polygamy, but they're wrong as to who the cause is. So Mormons, if this is going to upset you and cause you to leave, great. But make sure the focus is on Brigham Young, not Joseph Smith. Okay. Whew, this is going to be a very long video. Maybe we should do segmentation. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. We'll have to repeat this opening narrative, and then we'll do the separate videos for each one. Oh boy.